Well, time for another Hot Air Sports podcast, and we're joined this morning with me good mate, Mac.
What's my name?
M's mixed up. I'm Macca and he's Mahona, and below us here is Guy Heveldt from TVNZ. Guy, you've been TVNZ for a while, formerly Radio Sport. How are you enjoying the transition to television, although it's been a while now?
Yeah, it has been a while now. It's been about coming up 4 years, actually, in June. We are in June at the moment. In a couple of weeks, actually. So it's flown by. I love it. I do miss elements of radio, don't get me wrong, but doing things like this and other little radio segments that I do every now and again kind of keep that foot in there, so to speak. Really enjoying working life at the moment. Things are good. I mean, everyone asks me how much I enjoy my job, and it's funny, sometimes you get a boring day and you sit there and you think, oh, what am I doing? And then you kind of take a step back and you go, well, I'm getting paid to sit here and watch sport. It can't be that bad. So that's generally the way that I look at things.
Absolutely, and we'll kick right into that sport. Now you've been up the last couple of nights watching the cricket. Can't really put into words the performance that Devon Conway's put in over the last couple of days.
He's been unbelievable, hasn't he? And it's not so much a surprise, really, because we've seen what he's done in domestic cricket, and obviously there's a huge jump between domestic cricket and then getting to the international stage. But he got to the international stage, he's played T20 cricket, he's played one-day cricket, and every step that he's made it look so easy. And this test match, everyone's been saying that he should have been in this test team for a while. I can understand where the Black Caps were coming from. Tom Blundell scored a century at the Boxing Day test at the MCG. You can't just go and turf him out after that in a very, very disappointing display from everyone else. So it really stood out. So he deserved a chance, but when Conway is knocking on the door so much, you had to put him in. And then in this first innings at Lords, after 10 minutes, you just realised that he knew exactly what he was doing. He was nowhere near out of his depth. If anything, he looked one of the most comfortable players on the park. And then to bring up his century on day one, and then to bring up his double century on day two that we've just had, it is really hard to put it into words how significant this is and how impressive a start it is in a career that I think has got many more tests and many more years to come of significantly good performances for the Black Caps. And on top of that, how many years has it been since New Zealand cricket's had a genuine opening partnership in Test cricket? I mean, we've had Mark Richardson, but even then you didn't really have anyone to go with him. Yeah. Now they found Tom Latham, who has been there for years and has been superb in that role, but again hasn't really had anyone who's been significantly, a concrete person, I suppose, in that position to partner him at the top. And now we found Devon Conway, and you kind of pinch yourself, really, as a New Zealand cricket fan.
Yeah, and two left-handers as well. Two left-handers. I mean, that's Wright and Edgar. You'd have to go back to that, wouldn't you? I mean, we can say, it was a nailed-on thing that he was going to be a success. But just going back a couple of years, he's definitely no Graham Hick, is he? I mean, Graham Hick waited for about 6 or 7 years before he could make the England side, and everyone was like going, "Oh, he's just going to kill it in Test cricket." And then he didn't really, did he? Devon Conway, to the manner born, looks like he's made for Test cricket, mate. So. No, mate, it's just been absolutely fantastic. I've just been marveling at him the last couple of days, and it's great. I've actually got a song for him as well that I think is perfect, sums him up perfectly. She's a slice of Devon. Woo! Perfect. Works perfectly for him. There you go.
Planning that one for a whole week, haven't you?
I have, mate. I have.
And he nailed the notes, to be fair. That was beautiful.
Yeah, thanks, not bad. Interesting, though, it seems to me that, as you mentioned, Tom Blundell there, he seems to have missed out and has been told, you're missing out, but you're going to be in the test side after BJ retires. So if BJ hadn't been retiring, it might have been interesting times for the selectors.
I still think they probably would have had to make the change purely because, as I say, while Blundell's innings at the MCG was fantastic, since then He's been a little bit of rocks and diamonds. I think he might have had 1 or 2 half centuries possibly in that time. So not terrible, but nothing that you really want to hang your head on. And I think his natural position probably is in the middle order in Test cricket anyway. And he just seems like a simple replacement for BJ Watling. I've been lucky enough to go to plenty of Black Caps trainings, and Tom Blundell is the ultimate team guy. You know, he probably doesn't get enough credit for what he does in those team trainings. He literally just is BJ Watling's. He's not a slave, but man, he just puts in so much work to make the team better and to make BJ Watling better. He's like his training partner. He just goes and fetches the balls, throws the balls. It's quite impressive to watch. And finally, he will get his chance to, I suppose, cement a spot in the Black Cap side. And he's certainly up to it. And I look forward to seeing him as well, forging a decent.
Yeah, sorry, mate. Do you think Devon Conway
in that order?
Do you think Devon Conway's performance, though, was sort of maybe masked over a fairly average batting performance? I mean, of course, Nichols batted pretty well, but the rest of them fell away pretty markedly, didn't they? I wasn't too impressed by de Grandhomme especially, and Santner. For me, I think they've actually picked the wrong side. I think Santner and de Grandhomme are very, very lucky to be there. If you're going to pick your spinner, pick the best spinner. We've got a long enough batting order as it is, and de Grandhomme just hasn't played enough cricket for me. So what do you reckon?
I completely agree with you on Santner. I don't know what they continue to see in him in Test cricket. I mean, he's a superb limited overs cricketer. His bowling is brilliant in those 2 formats. But in Test cricket, I don't see the value at all. His bowling, I think his best figures are 3 for 57 or something similar. His batting isn't up to much. As you say, if you're going to pick a spinner, pick Ajaz Patel potentially. But I would have been open to picking Roshan Ravindra. I know it's a big call to chuck a guy in who hasn't even played international cricket yet, but you've got so many good players around him. He seems like he has an incredibly bright future. He's a great batsman. They're working on his bowling at the moment, and his bowling's pretty good. I just think it would have been a great opportunity, a massively daunting opportunity, but why not? Why not take a bit of a plunge? And then on Colin de Grandhomme, I don't know. It's a tricky one, that position, I think, because he's been so good for the Black Caps for so long. But every time that Daryl Mitchell's been in that team, he's been brilliant. And so I wouldn't have had a problem with them picking him. And then overall on the performance outside of Devon Conway, disappointing really. What were they? 288 to 3, I think they were when Nichols got out. And to get all out for 378. I think they'll be kicking themselves, really. They should have had at least 450, 500 on the board and really had the pressure all over England. I know they've got them 2 down for 111, and if you get a couple of early wickets on day 3, you're instantly back on top. But they've let England get kind of back into this match.
Yeah. Interesting comment from Simon Doull on day 1. I don't know if you picked it up. He was talking about Trent Boult and the fact that he's missing these first 2 tests. And Doull was saying that if Boult doesn't play in the second test, he shouldn't play in the World Test Championship final.
I don't quite disagree. I don't quite agree with that. I mean, I don't get me wrong. I respect Simon Doull, and how many tests did he play for New Zealand? 99 test wickets, whatever it was. But when you've got Trent Boult, one of our highest ever wicket takers, who is waiting in the wings, probably will be pretty fresh. Will be able to move that Duke's ball all over the place. We saw what he was able to do in the World Cup, albeit different format, different ball, that sort of thing, probably different conditions. But you have to pick Trent Boult if he's fit, to me, and him and Tim Southee when they're on. And it's quite remarkable, actually. I'll go off on a little tangent here, but to think that Trent Boult and Tim Southee are still spearheading this New Zealand attack and still doing it at an extraordinary level and still performing so well, I think that's probably something that isn't quite as appreciated as it should be from New Zealand cricket fans. We have been incredibly lucky with these two, and I wouldn't be breaking up that partnership if I didn't have to. I think if you're playing India in a World Test Championship final, you have to pick those two if they're available.
Yeah, often it's not until people are gone that we really miss them, eh? And I mean, I think that once those two are gone, we will really Obviously, we've got other guys waiting in the wings, but no, you're right. They are our Anderson and Broad, aren't they? They've just done it for so long and just been so consistent over such a long period. I mean, there's been times when both of them have had sort of form drops and everything, but they come back into it, don't they? They're just so consistent, and that's what the New Zealand side's needed for so long. As far as the Simon Doull comments go, I think maybe he should have just kept his powder dry until we saw exactly how our bowling attack does in this first test. I thought Jamieson bowled fairly well last night, but he was a little bit unlucky. And I don't know whether you saw Southey's wicket, but that was just perfect. He was just going in there and then just bowled him a little outswinger, and he just had a go. It was just perfect bowling. So the Duke's ball. How can you not pick Trent Boult with the Duke's ball on a green pitch? I mean, he's the best we've got, mate. So you got to pick him.
Bit like the selectors in the 80s telling Richard Hadley he's not playing in the first test because, you haven't played a lot of cricket in the last few weeks.
Exactly.
Looking forward to that World Test Championship final. I hate to bring up old memories, but you were at Lord's on the night of the World Cup final a couple of years ago. I'm not going to ask you too much about that, but what I am going to ask you is, what's it going to be like for those guys playing in that final, even though it's down at the Ageas Bowl, going into that game? It's an incredible achievement, really, when you look at the state of the test teams around the world.
It is a remarkable achievement, and Test cricket for a long time was New Zealand's worst format by a massive distance. New Zealand were terrible at Test cricket, so inconsistent. They maybe had 2 or 3 good players, and the rest were just there to make up the numbers, really. And now they've got a team that really, from top to bottom, you'd be hard pressed to really, those guys into the best teams around the world. And that is remarkable to think that New Zealand cricket is in that kind of position at the moment. In terms of what will happen in the World Test Championship final, I think New Zealand probably goes into it as favourites, purely because of a few factors. India will be coming essentially out of quarantine. The conditions should suit New Zealand a lot better than they will India. We will have 2 tests under New Zealand will have 2 tests under their belt heading into these matches with the Duke's ball, and also in similar conditions. They're in form at the moment, the Black Caps. I just think a lot of it points to a very strong showing from New Zealand. The other thing that should play into their hands is the fact that it won't be a rampant Indian crowd, and that if it wasn't for COVID, that could well have been the case, that they might have been facing what they were facing at Old Trafford in the semi-final at the World Cup. And I was lucky enough to be at that as well. And that was an unbelievable atmosphere. And, I say that maybe it plays into New Zealand's hands that crowd won't be there. But if we remember back to the final, New Zealand actually got on top early and managed to shut that crowd up like that. And that maybe turned the match in their favour and managed to put them on the front foot. But I do think it's probably helpful that there won't be, 20, 30,000 screaming Indian fans who are relentless for 5 days. I think that could have played into Virat Kohli and his side's hands. So, I think New Zealand has a fantastic chance of winning this thing, and I think that would be one of the more significant results in New Zealand cricket history. Possibly
it would be the biggest.
Significant.
Yeah,
I think it would be. Yeah,
it would be. It couldn't. I don't think that could be debated. I mean, the only thing I'm worried about is if the pitch turns. I just hope that it doesn't turn a lot. I've heard different stories about the pitch down there, that it can do a bit for everyone, so long as it does a bit for everyone and not too much for some.
But this goes back as well to what we were just saying before around the spinner. If you're going to go, if it does spin in Southampton and you want to pick a spinner there, why would you not have given your best spinner the opportunity to play a test leading into it?
Nailed it.
It seems very strange in that regard. So I hope that doesn't come back to bite them, but who knows? Maybe it will, and that could be something that we look back on and kind of shake our heads at, like we are right now.
Well, it's equivalent to the Lockie Ferguson thing, isn't it? When he should have played in that Test match in New Zealand against England, instead we went over to the MCG, he bowled 8 or something overs, fell over, couldn't bowl for the rest of the thing. We were stuffed for the rest of the thing. I just hope, that was a selection problem. We had scheduling problems before that. selection, man. We just got to get selection right. We've got the right players, pick them in the right spots, get it right. There's just no excuse. I'm just a little bit, just getting a bit tense. Just getting a bit tense.
I get where you're coming from, but at the same time, they haven't done a lot wrong this group. I mean, if we're nitpicking, and this is what I keep saying as well about the current New Zealand cricket wave, I suppose, for want of a better term, that we're riding, the fact that we are sitting here now and debating selections as opposed to debating who the hell they could possibly pluck out of nowhere to kind of fill a position. Isn't it just incredible that there are now in most positions 2, 3, sometimes 4 guys that they could pick, a couple of people who you would think are unlucky not to be in that team. It's remarkable how far New Zealand cricket's come in the space of, well, pretty much 10 years, really.
Yeah, it's a glorious time to be a New Zealand cricket fan. The best time of our lives, isn't it, Macca? The best time of our lives.
Quite right. And you think back to probably the turning point of the whole New Zealand cricket team in Test cricket would be that horrible first innings in South Africa when we were all out for...
Oh, I've tried to forget. It was close to 26.
45 or something.
Yeah.
But just ever since then, yeah. I know. I remember watching that night and just thinking, oh my God, what the hell is going on here? Anyway, moving on. We've talked enough about certainly Devon Conway and also talking about the World Test Championship final. There's been something going on in the world of rugby at the moment that just doesn't seem to go away. And I know you've done a couple of stories on this, and I'm talking about the Silverlake deal, obviously, with the New Zealand Rugby Union. What's going on, Guy?
Help us. Enlighten us. Can you enlighten us?
Well, it's funny that we've just talked about New Zealand cricket being in possibly its strongest position ever, I would say, certainly for my time since I've been alive. As for New Zealand rugby at the moment, I would say this is probably, I don't know if they're in the worst position they've ever been, but this is probably the most concerning position they've ever been, both on the field, and I take the All Blacks and the Black Ferns out of this equation, but I just mean in terms of Super Rugby, the dwindling interest in rugby at the moment, the ongoing concussion battle and the future of that and how that looks for rugby as a whole and New Zealand rugby as well. And I think the next 5 to 10 years for that side of things are incredibly crucial. And then Silverlake and the financial position that New Zealand rugby finds itself in at the moment. This is our national game. And this is an organisation now for, the last wee while anyway, that has been financially struggling. And you sit here and you wonder, how can that be? How can New Zealand rugby have found itself in this position? And Silverlake, an enormous investment company, global investment company, comes knocking, has all this expertise, offers, well, what is it now? $389 million. $389 million with so much business acumen, so many bright people. And we're still at the stage where we're pondering whether to do it. We're fighting against it. It just seems to me like it's a no-brainer. New Zealand rugby needs to move with the time. This is my opinion. New Zealand rugby needs to move with the times right now, where you can't sit here as a New Zealand entity and just play the New Zealand game if you want to sports organisation. Sport is a costly exercise. Sport is a very, very costly exercise. And if New Zealand rugby is going to sit here and at the moment with its, well, to be fair, not New Zealand rugby, at the moment it's kind of the players sit here and think that they are going to find a way forward without Silverlake, I think is a very, very dangerous way to go about things.
So you're siding with the union then, Guy? Basically, you're sort of saying the players don't know what... I guess the main concern that the players have got, and the main concern that people like Ian and I have got as well, is that, the money's fine if it secures the right things, if it goes to the right places, but will it go to the right places? And I don't think the New Zealand Rugby Union's done enough to basically let the players know and let the general public know where that money's going to go and why it's going to secure the future for the sport.
That's a fair point, absolutely. But what I think counters that is the fact that Silverlake would have, I think it's 3, maybe more members on the commercial board. And so you would like to think that with that knowledge that they've had with the likes of the New York Knicks and Manchester City and other global sports entities, that they would be able to bring that and instantly, I suppose, move New Zealand rugby forward to where it needs to go. I completely get, and I almost, part of me does side with the concerns that we currently, that people are voicing and the players are voicing around this whole situation. But at the same time, the Players Association solution is to essentially get a massive loan and build revenue and profit out of that. I don't see how that's a smart idea to put yourself into debt and then try and get revenue and profit out of that. That seems a very backwards way of doing things. And then their other idea or proposal is the whole Forsyth Bar thing. And I suppose, put it out to the New Zealand public to buy shares. Don't get me wrong, there will be a small selection or a selection of the New Zealand public who will buy a share purely because they want to be able to say, I own the All Blacks. But in terms of a business move, I don't think it's very bright, and I don't think it's got a sustainable future. And we've already seen that New Zealand rugby's been losing money year on year. And if they go that way, I don't see that changing at all.
Well, that's the most straight talk I think I've heard. I think you need to apply for a job at the New Zealand Rugby Union right now, because that is, you've basically told it straight, and you haven't convinced me, but you've got me thinking, and that's all we want to do is think a bit more deeply about it and the reasons why. I don't think anyone in the New Zealand Rugby Union has come out and articulated it as well as what you just did then.
What I would say though, and I completely side with the players in the sense that, there must be something in this whole agreement that has the players very, very, very concerned that New Zealand Rugby has not, has maybe kept quiet or kept silent or hasn't quite made as public as they possibly should. I'm sitting here going, players are this against a deal that on paper looks so wonderful. What is it that is really turning them off so much? And I know they have voiced a few things around, giving up a percentage of the profit and all that sort of stuff, or the percentage of the revenue rather. And I understand that, but if that's their biggest problem, I'm not quite sure that's enough to sway me their way. There must be something else there that has them so concerned over what this deal could possibly do to New Zealand going forward, because at the moment it seems like the most obvious way for me.
Is this a case when I've heard it from a couple of people who have been on Sky's The Breakdown program, and they've essentially said that it's got to the stage now where it's just become personal. And Rob Nichols done an amazing job with the Players Association, don't get me wrong, but has he been there too long, and is he just arguing for the sake of arguing?
Look, I'm probably not quite as deep in it to be able to answer that question. I know the players respect him, and so if the players respect him and he is, I suppose, their boss, then what are they supposed to do? Exactly, he's doing his job. He's protecting them or going into bat for them, which is exactly what he's paid to do. So in that regard, he's probably doing a superb job. Maybe from the outside in, for us as fans, as media, with an interest in the game, maybe it is time for a change if we want to see this deal done. But as you say, his job, what he is paid to do is to get the best deal for the players, and he's doing that at the moment, and he's fighting for what they want. So I don't think we can really sit here and say, mate, move on, because from their eyes, clearly he's doing a wonderful job, and he's got to take on New Zealand rugby. If the players tell him that they aren't comfortable with something, he's got to go in there with the boxing gloves and fight for them, and that's what he's doing. And maybe from the outside in, it's not attractive, and to us, it's an ugly thing to watch. But it's what he needs to do to keep his players happy and to keep them in New Zealand as well. Because let's be honest, the players aren't happy. There are many millions of dollars that they could just go over and play for in Europe or Japan, and we'd be saying goodbye to them. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword in that regard.
Exactly. Anyway, enough of Silverlake deal, and here's hoping they can get it resolved soon.
Yeah.
Rather than later. I think another thing that is Aaron and I have talked about over recent weeks, and whether it should actually go ahead, is the Olympics. Now you're supposedly going to cover it for TVNZ, and I saw a story was it last night or the night before that the organisers saying, "Oh look, we've been playing all these football games and baseball games, and everything's been fine, but you're talking about a Japanese population that if you say don't sit too close to that person, they won't. They're not all about, they're about doing things properly. And as I just have reservations about, this could become the world's biggest super spreader event.
Look, I completely agree. I think it's I think it's rather dangerous. I think it's getting to the point where they certainly have to contemplate whether it goes ahead. I think it's 100% going ahead, purely because
money.
There is so much money to be playing with, and the IOC cannot afford for it not to go ahead. But all you have to do really is look at the IPL and see what happened there. And that was with what I'm guessing here, but maybe 300-400 people in a bubble. This Olympics is tens of thousands of athletes, officials, coaches,
broadcasters, media,
volunteers, who are coming from all over the world. There's no obligation for them to be vaccinated. Only 0.7 or just less than 3. I might have just got that slightly wrong. Of the Japanese population has been vaccinated. It seems simple mathematics would say that there has to be an enormous outbreak at some stage during these Olympics. I mean, they would be incredibly lucky. It would just be pure luck, wouldn't it, if there's not an outbreak? And I'm no medical expert, but if all these medical experts are coming out and saying there's a good chance that there might be a Tokyo 2020 Olympics variant put into the world, then I think it is a rather dangerous game that they're playing. In saying that, I've never been to the Olympics, and from a personal point of view and from a purely selfish point of view, I do hope they go ahead. And I'm kind of wrestling with what I think should happen, because as I say, and this is very selfish, and it's not, part of me is like, it's not the right thing to think, but I just want to go to the Olympics because I love the Olympics and I just think it would be amazing. But at the same time, we're in the middle of a pandemic, for goodness sake. Like,
yeah.
Right, but even after going to these Olympics, will you really? I mean, this isn't going to be a normal Olympics. This isn't going to be the sort of thing where there's, where everyone's sort of around. There's a great atmosphere, and everyone's just going to be hunkered at home watching it on telly. There's not going to be any crowds. This is going to be the weirdest sporting event you'll ever have been to. I think. I mean, it's unprecedented. I mean, it'll be strange.
Another part of the reason why I kind of wanted to go ahead to experience
the weirdo,
but it is gonna. I am a very strange person, if you hear me. It's bizarre because as it stands right now, I don't think we're allowed to interview the athletes face to face. So we're going to be over there, and we're going to be still doing the interviews over Zoom, like we are right now. And even though we'll be in Tokyo and we'll be in the venues and we'll be filming elements of them and that sort of thing, we won't be able to talk to them. And it was funny, I was down for a Rowing New Zealand morning not long ago, just to be able to film them. They kind of had a media day down there. It was just before the New Zealand men's 8 was heading off overseas for that last chance regatta in Lucerne, and they were kind of going into their bubble and getting their kind of COVID protocols into place, and so we couldn't interview them face to face there. And I was sitting here like we are right now down in Lake Karapiro, and Hamish Bond, I was doing the Zoom with the camera pointing towards the building which was literally 40 meters away. And he was locked in a room, so he couldn't see me. But I was saying, mate, I held up my phone. I said, mate, you're literally in that building right there, and we can't talk to each other face to face. It was very bizarre, but I understood where they were coming from. They don't want to take any risks, and I get that. But that is a small taste of what I think these Olympics are going to be like. They are going to be very strange. And whether the Tokyo, look, the Japanese people are just very kind, generous people that I think they won't cause any upset or any fuss. There might be maybe small protests or anything like that, but I think they'll let it happen. But whether it should happen, I don't know. I've been told, and I'm not. I won't say that this is definite or anything, but I've been told the rumor is that the latest they can cut it off is the 27th of June. Now, as I say, that's not genuine oil, but that's what a couple of people who, I don't know if they have direct lines or not, but people who I respect, absolutely, they say June the 27th is the latest that it can be called off. So whether that's true or not, we'll wait and see, and whether it goes ahead. Yeah, we'll wait and see as well.
There you go, punters. You heard it here first. It's official. The 27th of June is when the Olympics are going to be called off. If they are going to be called off. I wouldn't be
going and putting money on that. I wouldn't go and put money on it.
Right. So let's say the Olympics are going ahead and we're going to get to the 28th of June and they're still going ahead. Who are going to be our main medal contenders, and what sort of sports will you be covering?
Well, I think I'll be doing a lot of rowing. I like rowing, and I've been around those guys and girls for a little bit now. So yeah, I'll get in amongst that. Maybe a bit of cycling, although I wonder how well the cyclists are going to go. Maybe the women's team pursuit could go pretty well, or the women's endurance squad. The men's team sprint, though, who used to be perennial medal favourites for New Zealand, have slipped off the boil a little bit. I'm not sure about the men's team pursuit. They're a good quartet, but when push comes to shove and the best of the best are there, I think they might just be slightly behind. Valerie Adams has to be considered at least a medal chance, possibly one of our main gold medal hopes. Lisa Carrington, my word, she should win one, possibly two, possibly three gold medals. She's a freak, and I mean that in the best sense of the word. Tom Walsh, he might be there or thereabouts. And then there's bound to be one or two. There always are, aren't there? Bound to be one or two medals that no one's talked about. No one knows who they are. They just pop out of thin air. There you go. They've won a gold, or they've won a medal of some description, and we all get excited about it, and we all start researching what is trap shooting and how does it actually work.
Eliza McCartney, the last one.
One or two of those, and there will be. Well, Eliza McCartney, she's actually got a competition this weekend. I'm glad you brought that up. One of her last chances, if not her last chance, to qualify for the Olympics, and we have barely seen her in the last 2 years with this Achilles injury. I think her best is 4.37 or 4.27 this season, and the Olympic qualifying standard is 4.70. So she's got a lot of work to do to get there. If she's fit, there's no reason why she can't. But I dare say a medal would be one of New Zealand's greatest achievements at the Olympics in history if Eliza McCartney can go there and bring back some tin.
Is Nick Willis is still around, isn't he? He's going to be there in the 1500 meters.
That guy's like an Energizer bunny. How does he keep going to these things? It's crazy. Look, again, I think a medal is probably out of his reach.
Well, we said that the last two Olympics, though, haven't we?
Exactly, we did, and that's what I was about to say. You know, he continues to be there or thereabouts. He continues to make the final. He's a very smart athlete. He knows exactly who to be able to peak for these types of events, and so who are we to say that he won't be able to do it again? He's a very wily competitor, Nick Willis, and it would be a phenomenal story if he just made the final and was there or thereabouts at the end.
And what about the sevens? Sorry.
I was just going to say there's also a couple of chaps by the name of Burling and Tuke that are reasonably well known in the
I didn't even. There's so much going on. I didn't even think of sailing. I didn't think of sevens. You know, the sevens should be 2 medals guaranteed. Burling and Czech should be a gold guaranteed. A couple of our other sailors are pretty good as well. Josh Jr. will be there or thereabouts. You know, the 470. You know, I'm sure I've missed a few.
Maybe the equestrian. Maybe the equestrian. I don't know.
Yeah, the equestrian. Yeah.
Always there or thereabouts, aren't they?
New Zealand's always pretty good in that discipline. So, yeah, I mean, there, as I say, there are bound to be a few that we've forgotten, and a couple that will surprise us as well.
Well, Guy, it's been absolutely brilliant to have you aboard on the Hot Air Sports podcast. We'll definitely catch up with you once you get back from those Olympics, and you've been vaccinated now, so
yeah, go well, be safe, mate.
This is a COVID-free zone as we speak.
So yeah, all the very best. Enjoy the Olympics for what they are going to be, and we'll look forward to catching up with you when you get back.
Thanks very much, fellas. Love what you guys do, and it's a pleasure to be able to talk to you, and I'd love to come back on once those Olympics have been and gone, and give you some experiences about what they were like, and just how close we were able to get to some of those athletes, and maybe some of the highlights of some of those athletes winning gold. But no, thank you very much for your time. I very much enjoyed it.
Well, thanks to Guy for that great insight on the cricket, the Silverlake deal, and also the Olympics. It certainly is going to be an interesting event, and we look forward to catching up with him maybe when he's in managed isolation.
Yeah, he's got 2 weeks of it, mate. He's going to have plenty of time on his hands, so hopefully we can catch up with him again. It's great hearing the stories from the inside, from the inner sanctum, isn't it? So to speak.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, mate, we usually start off the program with a bit of football, but we got sidetracked this morning, of course, with Guy. So the Euros kick off next Saturday, New Zealand time.
Do they?
Turkey, yeah, when Turkey take on Italy. England's first game comes on June the 14th when they face Croatia at Wembley. And manager Gareth Southgate finally named his 26-man squad the other day.
He did.
Included one Trent Alexander-Arnold, but now he's out.
Yeah, is he out?
Yeah.
Do we know for sure he is?
6 weeks he's out.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting, him selecting 4 right backs. Of course, they did have the extended squad of 26, 4 right backs. I think the reason he selected 4 right backs was obviously to cover for Scotland's massive strength at left back. Obviously, that's what. Right. No, so yeah, there you go. They've got so much strength at right back, and Trent pulled a thigh or a calf yesterday.
Muscle, yeah.
For me, I think that's a good thing for Liverpool. If you're a Liverpool fan, he doesn't need to be at the Euros anyway. England aren't going to do much, if you ask me. I mean, I just can't. It's coming home. It's coming home. We're getting ready to be disappointed again. Every single time they talk it up, and every single time they fall flat on their face. I think they'll do well to get to the semi-finals. I know they are second favourites behind France. I can't see them going anywhere near France when you look at what France has got on the pitch. For me, weaknesses in the centre of defence for sure with Harry Maguire. Even though I don't rate him, he's probably their best option with Joe Gomez out. So yeah, they've got weaknesses there, and I don't rate their goalie either. I think Pickford's a bit of a liability. So going forward, they look $1 million, but Gareth Southgate won't focus on that. So I can't see England doing too much, to be fair.
That's all right. Pickford will just take out the opposing team's centre back anyway.
What he does, eh? That's what he does.
Interesting game yesterday, a couple of days ago against Austria. Only beat them 1-0.
Yeah.
Interesting that he selected Jesse Lingard, who isn't actually in his 26-man squad.
Yeah, I think he did that because of the Chelsea and the Man City players obviously being pretty stuffed after that Champions League final. So, yeah, he picked him. And also James Ward-Prowse came off the bench as well, and he hasn't been selected as part of that either. So,
yeah, there's talk about him coming into the squad to replace Trent, so it'll be interesting to see what they do there. Yeah, the 4 right backs that they picked, of course, Southgate had talked about, play, because he has played with the three man back line with the 3 centre backs, and Reece James, who is one of those 4 right backs, he can play in one of those 3 centre back roles as well. and obviously Trent going forward is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
And his defending's improved a lot this year, and his stats actually prove that he's won more tackles and more interceptions than any of those other three.
Absolutely, mate. He had 56 tackles this year, 55 for James, 29 for Walker, 61. So Trippier's got slightly more tackles. Clearances, he's got the most. He's got by far the most crosses, 199. Next best is 108 by James. And then he's got the most chances created by Miles as well, 77 as opposed to 42, next best for James. And assists, he's got the most assists as well. So his stats look absolutely phenomenal. Gareth, though, he says, I don't think he can defend. So that's what Gareth wants, defender. Well, Trent's out now, so they'll have to cope with Trippier, Walker, and James. For me, James is a great player. He's a good player. He's a sort of Alexander Light for me, and he'll be at okay. And Walker for me is just so pacey. I mean, he's got his pace that he can always run back and get, and of course he can also play a central defence as well. Trippier, I mean, I think he got in the side because Atletico Madrid won La Liga. To be fair, he's a good player, but he's nowhere near as good as Trent. Nowhere near it. So
rumor going around that he's going to Man United. Haven't they just spent 600?
They got one Osaka. Oh yeah, maybe they play left back. Maybe they'll kick out Shaw. I don't know, mate. Everyone's going to Man United.
Yes, but yeah, to say the 4 right backs that Southgate selected, he's named 4 centre backs and 2 left backs, with just Chilwell and Shaw. So
yeah, nicely balanced side by Gareth. Yeah.
No, I'm really looking forward to seeing the likes of Foden and Grealish get amongst it. Looks like Jordan Henderson will be ruled out of that first game, but should be right after then. So hopefully that goes well. Amazing result for Scotland the other day. Draw Netherlands 2-2.
And they only got pipped in the last minute.
It was only a last-minute goal from Memphis Depay that salvaged the game. And Scotland had 6 of their first team, their top team players out because of COVID. So,
mate,
result for the Sweaties.
Oh, absolutely. I hope they're the dark horse in these championships, mate. They've made it through. That's all they need to do, make it through. And now they're there. They're going to party like it's 1984, the last time they ever did anything in international football. Yeah. But they're a good side. They're a good side, the Scottish side. I mean,
I watched a few of their World Cup qualifiers and qualifiers for this. And Steve Clark, the former Liverpool assistant to Kenny Dalglish, has actually got that side humming. He's probably been the best Scottish manager they've had for a long time.
Yeah, no surprises. He's a great coach, mate. No surprises.
Yep, their first game is at Hampton Park against the Czech Republic on the 15th. So, we'll be following them closely. Chelsea, the old Spartak Chelsea, eh?
We got the result we wanted.
I got the result I wanted. Man City still haven't won a European Cup or Champions League. So, a great meme the other day from Man United with Bobby Charlton and somebody else looking at the trophy with the words coming out. No, still can't see City on there.
There's been quite a few of them, actually. I've been reading a few of them. There's this one, Champions League for Pep since joining City in 2016. 62 million on goalies, 425 million on defenders, 152 million on midfielders, 205 million on attackers. That's 844 million total on players, yet there are still won the same amount of Champions Leagues as Morecambe. But this could be a problem. Does this mean that they're going to go out and spend another 200 million in the offseason, buy Harry Kane? And, this could be a problem. The other one was a tweet that was put out by Dejan Lovren. I don't know whether you saw this one. This is Dejan. He said, UEFA's Champions League, 2013, Mandzukic, 2014, Modric, 2015, Rakitic, 2016, Modric and Kovacic, 2017, Modric and Kovacic, 2018, Modric and Kovacic, 2019, Lovren, 2020, Perisic, 2021, Kovacic. City should buy some Croatian players.
Oh, very good.
Congratulations, Chelsea, he said. So Dejan Lovren sticking in the boot. Oh, I love that one too.
Right.
Poor old City.
But the bigger game that weekend, of course, the mighty Brentford are in the Premiership. First time in the top flight for, I think it was 74 years or something along those lines?
Yes, the same year my mum was born. 1947 was the last time that they were in the top league. Brentford made it through, early goal, and that was basically all she wrote. They basically dominated Swansea. Swansea didn't really throw a punch. I felt sorry for them. They got a guy sent off, and Swansea back in the championship. Sorry about that, Kerry. You'll have to build again next year, but it'll be good to see Brentford, and they're actually the 50th side to make the Premier League since its inception in 1992. So yeah, congratulations to Brentford. It'll be really interesting to see how they go about tackling the Premier League, because they are one of those sides that doesn't tend to compromise about the way they play. So it could be another Leeds situation where they just go out and try and play. So I'm looking forward to seeing them.
Yes, Brentford versus Leeds could be a cracker.
Absolutely.
Game to
7-6
when the draw comes out.
Yeah.
The managerial merry-go-round continues.
This is nuts.
Zinedine Zidane, he obviously resigned last week and has been replaced by Everton's Carlo Ancelotti. Interesting that
what is the point of Everton? What is the point? There's no point to them.
I saw a meme, might have been this morning actually, the fact that Everton's last three managers have gone on to manage Belgium, Barcelona, and Real Madrid now.
Yeah, the top side in the world and the two top club teams in the world. And meanwhile, Everton are struggling for another manager. The thing is, a couple of days before, Ancelotti said how proud he was of the side, how he's looking forward. He wants to be the manager when they move into their new stadium and all this sort of stuff. And 24 hours later, he's like, hold my ticket. I'm off to Spain.
Yeah.
I mean, do we feel sorry for Everton? I suppose a little bit, but we're sort of laughing too.
Yeah, oh well. Oh dear, how sad, never mind.
Oh, there's just so many. And so who else has gone? So Carlo's gone to La Liga.
Carlo's gone to Real Madrid. Antonio Conte's the favourite to take over at Spurs.
Oh, that sounds like, I can't wait for that to happen. There's going to be
a great relationship, won't it? Daniel Levy and Antonio Conte.
Oh, get them into a boxing ring.
Yep. Juventus have sacked Andrea Pirlo after just a couple of seasons, and Max Allegri has gone back there.
Yep.
Last week we talked about former Bournemouth boss Eddie Howe, who was set to take over as Celtic manager, but that all fell over, and now former Socceroo boss Ange Postecoglou is going to take over the board.
I just want to hear someone in a Scottish accent say Postecoglou.
Yeah.
Postecoglou.
It'll just be who's the Celtic boss? Ange.
There we go.
Now, of course, Everton are looking for a new manager, as we just talked about. Ex-Wolves manager Nuno Espirito Santo seems to be in the running for that, as well as Eddie Howe. And a couple of names that came up during the week. One, Rafa Benitez, who still lives in the Liverpool area. And they're even talking about maybe Everton asking Steven Gerrard to manage. Do you think Stevie would do it?
Oh, I think Stephen would pick up the phone and then he'd laugh like we are. There's absolutely no way Steven Gerrard would go and manage Everton. If you've ever read anything about him, ever heard him talk, there's just no way. I mean, for a start, half his family would disown him. So there's no. The Rafa Benitez one is interesting. You're right. He does live in the area and all that sort of thing. And I think Jamie Carragher suggested that one.
Yeah.
I can't see it, to be fair. I think Rafa's knows the history of both clubs. I just couldn't see him taking that either. So who does that leave? Someone that we said we were quite happy to see go at the end of the last season. I think he's available. Sam Allardyce, come in. Well, Sam Allardyce.
He's managed Everton before.
I know. Bring him back. Bring him back.
Sam. No,
him or Moyes. Or Moyes.
Well, Moyes is confirmed he's staying at West Ham.
Okay.
On a new deal. I think it could be Nuno might up across Stanley Park from Liverpool. I think he'd be very good. Either him or Eddie Howe. I think Everton really need to get in a young upcoming manager, and I know those two guys have been around for a while, but they're both young, and I think they could stay there. They would stay there for a long time and build up that squad.
Someone who never gets a mention for these things is Sean Dyche. I mean, for Burnley, he's really unpopular type of manager because of the style they play and stuff. But for him, what he's done over the past 5 years with Burnley, they're never in threatened relegation, and yet they should be. They're on the lowest budget. He just does so well, but he's just so unpopular because of the way he talks, and he's a bit gruff and all that. But I reckon he'd be a perfect fit for Everton, but they won't select him because he's just not Hollywood enough. They're looking for a Hollywood manager, and either Nuno or Eddie Howe would do. But no, like you say, they'd stay there for ages. No, they wouldn't, because Everton will finish 17th or 18th, and they'll kick him out and get someone else, and that's what always happens. So,
yes, quite right. Well, not such great news for the Phoenix last night, with Adelaide and West Sydney Wanderers drawing 2-2. The Phoenix needed West Sydney Wanderers to win that game to still have a chance of making the playoffs. Unfortunately, a missed penalty in front of 22,000 fans at Eden Park by Ulysses Davila didn't quite go. They didn't get the result they wanted. They needed to win that. And
and to be fair, did you watch the game, Macca? You watched the game?
The Perth game.
Yeah, the one in the one at Eden Park. You watched it on the telly. Yeah. Yep. Okay. Well, I thought we should have won. I mean,
absolutely.
There's no way we're all over them. We should have won. We should have made it count when it counted. And why? I mean, I know Davia's been the penalty taker all year, but he's been out with injury for a while. Why give him the opportunity to take the penalty when he's leaving and it's his last game? Thought that was a strange one. I mean, I don't know, mate. It was elsewhere. I just would have had someone else take the penalty. But there you go. Another season's over for the Phoenix. They've looked good and they've really played a lovely style of football. They've just got to build on it. I know they're losing, a couple of their good players. Obviously, Tavia, our best player. So, just building blocks. At least we've got the same coach next year, same style of football. Let's bring the same style of football, and hopefully we can get some more games over here too. So, good on the Phoenix. They've had a reasonable season. If they had made the semis, anything could have happened, but unfortunately not the year.
Yeah, no, I think Ufuk Talai has done a great job this year. And as you've said on a number of occasions, the team has actually played some really, really good football over the year. And even, these last two games in New Zealand, getting those, nearly 25,000 in Wellington and just over 22,000 in Auckland has been fantastic. And long may that continue when
absolutely
Phoenix do return to playing more regularly on New Zealand shores. So, looks like the top six is wrapped up already now, with Melbourne City claiming the minor premiership. Sydney, Brisbane Roar, Central Coast Mariners, new side Macarthur have done well in their first season, and Adelaide United have squeaked into the top six after spending most of the season in the bottom half of the table. So, with the points situation at the moment, the worst Wellington can finish is in 8th position. So, out of 12 teams, given everything that they've gone through playing the whole season, bar 2 games in Australia, hats off to Ufuk Talai and his staff and the whole of the Phoenix crew for a good season.
Absolutely.
Rugby union, not really much
about
now that we've spoken about the Silverlake deal and all that's going on there. The Reds managed to finally break the Aussie drought in the Trans-Tasman Super Rugby last week with a win over the Chiefs, with Damien McKenzie getting sent off. That was an interesting call. I think it probably did deserve a red card, but I don't think it deserved 3-week suspension.
Yeah, I don't know, mate. It's just I watch a lot of rugby league, as you know, and I've just seen this time and time again in the last 2 or 3 weeks, and you just can't do it. So, it was a done move, and of course, 14 against 15 in rugby, it's kind of difficult, and the Chiefs lost. But I'm just looking at the odds for this week's Trans-Tasman things, and oh my God, mate, I've never seen the Crusaders at such low odds. They are at, if you put $1,000 on the Crusaders, how much do you think you'd get for them against the Force this weekend? If you put $1,000 on,
$100,
they'd give you $1 back.
$1
They are paying 1.001 at the TAB. Why do they bother? Why do they bother with those head-to-head odds? The Force are paying $20 in a head-to-head game. So, I think the Crusaders are fairly heavy favourites in that one. Then you've got the Reds who are paying $3.20 against the Blues, $1.31. That could be worth a punt. That's not too bad. But once again, if the Blues...
I'm actually going to put $10 on the Force.
Okay. $20.
I'm going to put $10 on the Force. The Force have actually been playing some really good rugby lately. Crusaders have picked virtually a B team.
Okay.
No Richie Mo'unga. No Sam Whitelock. A few others are missing as well. So
I think they should be paying $200. Though, if the Crusaders are at 1.001, then the Force should be at 200. I mean, but anyway, $20, it's worth a punt. That's actually not a bad for $20. I mean, that's what they're trying to do, though, mate. Trying to get you on there. So the Blues 131, the Reds 320. That's probably more of a normal sort of a game. Then we go to the Highlanders and the Waratahs. Highlanders 1.01, so they're paying $1.01, and the Waratahs are paying 13s. So once again, good. The Brumbies 270 and the Hurricanes $1.42. Once again, that's almost a normal game of rugby. And then the Chiefs $1.07 against the Rebels $7.50. No chance there for the Rebels, if you ask me. They are a rabble. So Force could be a go. Maybe the Reds if you're looking for some value after their win last week, and any of the others I wouldn't touch them. But basically, it says it all, doesn't it, mate?
I'd be tempted to put some money on the Brumbies. Yes, the Hurricanes are top of the table, but 2 weeks ago against the Rebels, they were absolutely awful.
They were. You were there.
They won by 22 points.
Yep, you were there, mate. So there you go. You're going to put $5 on the Force and $5 on the Brumbies. You bloody traitor.
Right, what's happening in the rugby league world? We've got State of Origin coming up.
We do, mate. We do. But before we get to the State of O, let's just talk about the Warriors last week. I thought they were up to their neck in the game until a brain explosion by Jazz Tavanga midway through the first half. It was late. It was a late hit, yes, but a yellow card. The ref said you had a whip. You created a whiplash motion. I'm like, what the? Never heard this. All of a sudden, you hit a guy and his head goes like that and you get sent off the field for 10 minutes. It's ridiculous. The Cowboys laid on 2 tries and kicked out to a big lead. And then the Warriors roared back through a stellar performance yet again from teenage sensation and my latest sporting man crush, Reece Walsh. My God, this guy can play. He also had a whiplash action when he was horse-collared. Now, this is something that's...
I saw that. That was really interesting. You
mate,
do that
in the NFL.
Football.
I know. And it happens all the time in rugby league. And they're so sensitive about whiplash motions, about attacking the head, about any of that. And yet you can grab a guy by the back of the jersey and pull him back like that. Yeah. So... that was crazy. But the funny thing about that, though, is the guy pulled him back and actually pulled him on top of him and he bounced off him. It was a crazy, crazy try. So that was a fantastic 80-meter breakaway try. And it got me thinking, can you imagine when this boy makes his first bow at Mount Smart Stadium? I don't even think he's ever been to New Zealand. He's going to get a massive reception when he finally gets to Mount Smart. I've been trying to describe him for a few weeks now. For those that haven't seen Reece Walsh, what he's like and I've got him as a combination of 3 players: Billy Slater, Benji Marshall, Kalen Ponga. For me, he's a mixture of those 3, and those are 3 pretty good players to be a mix of, if you ask me.
Not a bad mix of players at all.
Now, the Warriors then got their noses in front and led by 6 points with 8 minutes to go in the second half, but poor kicking options and a bad game management led to the Cowboys scoring a converted try and then slotting a last-minute field goal because our guys can't kick field goals. We are hopeless kicking field goals. The Warriors simply have to be better and win those games if they want to make the top 8. We've had 2 or 3 of them this year. We've lost them all. Tohu Harris, I just thought I'd say something about him. He was just absolutely amazing. He's the new Mannering. He always tops the tackle count in the VB hard end index. The VB hard end index. He's always number 1 on that. He is odds on to be our captain next year when Roger leaves the club. We've got the bye this week. The Warriors got the bye this week. The Storm next week. Reece Walsh and Adam Pompey are going to be suspended for that game after being put on report. Of course, we have been put on report because we're playing for a Kiwi side. Yep. And Adam Whenua-Blake is going to be back from injury. It's been revealed he is coming back from injury against the Storm, so he'll be welcomed back. Utility forward Jazz Tavanga is on track to join the Warriors 100 game club after yesterday he signed a brand new 2-year deal until the end of the 2023 season. That was really good because he fielded interest from lots of other clubs. He's 25 years old. He has the odd brain explosion, but he provides that little bit of mongrel for the Warriors, which I love. So I'm glad that he's re-signed for the Warriors. The gap is widening between the top two and the rest, but we always learn more during the State of Origin period, and teams outside the 8 without much Origin representation have a chance to go on a run starting in the next couple of weeks. So the Panthers and the Storm are still easily top of the table. Then you've got the Eels and the Rabbits on 18, the Roosters on 16, then the Dragons, Seagulls and Cowboys on 12, and then the Warriors sit with the Titans and the Knights on 10, and then you've got Sharks, Tigers, Raiders, and Broncos and Bulldogs at the very bottom. So the Warriors are still sitting in the 8 way on points differential, but string a couple of wins together and anything's still possible. So there you go. That's a Warriors wrap for you. And as you said, the Origin has been the Origin teams have been announced. Perhaps the biggest thing for the Queensland side was that Kalen Ponga has been made unavailable due to injury. They're going to bring Valentine Holmes into fullback. And the New South Wales side just looks stacked to me. I just think that they're going to be massive favourites this year, but they were last year as well. And of course, there was all the talk about the worst ever Queensland side, and they still won. So
mate, it's state against state, mate
against mate. Guys bring a crate, girls bring a plate. Yeah, always look forward to State of Origin. I'm not quite as invested as I used to be with the State of Origin. Used to love it, but it's still a good thing to. It just goes on a little bit too late as well. I mean, they don't kick off until sort of 11 o'clock sometimes, and but I still enjoy watching 20, however many Aussies bash the bejesus out of each other. It's always a bit of fun.
Now, I see the first game's been moved from Melbourne up to Townsville.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't think they've ever had a game up there. Cool.
Because they've got a brand new stadium up there, haven't they?
They have.
The Cowboys, and it's a nice looking stadium actually.
It is.
And I also noticed that TV3 is going to be showing the game live and free to air.
Wow, just like the old days. Are they going to bring back Clint Brown and Hamish Mackay to do the commentary? Should be fantastic. It's all happening here. I hope they do. No, it'll be interesting to see who they do get. Are they just going to take the commentary? I presume they will.
They'll just take the feed live from the Channel 9 7 Central commentary position.
Thank you very much, Macca. That's great stuff from you on the sideline. Tony Mackay. No, I always look forward to the Origin. So yeah, it should be good. And Warriors, of course, have a bye because that's just what we need during Origin because we've got so many players out.
Exactly.
That's my league wrap.
Sadness over the last week or so with the death of Bob Bozo Fulton, mate.
Yeah, man, this was sad, eh? I mean, he was a hell of a player. I got something on Bozo here. One of the original 4 Immortals. Died at the age of 74. He had a long battle with cancer. He played for Manly, New South Wales and Australia, and he also played for the Roosters as well. He was one of the first 4 players to be granted immortal status in 1981, along with these names, Clive Churchill, John Raper, and Reg Gasnier. All of those guys, and massive names in rugby league. He represented Australia in 35 tests as a player, and perhaps more we remember him as people our age more as a coach. He was a very, very good coach, and he coached the Australian team on 40 occasions, represented New South Wales on 17 occasions, played 213 premiership games for Manly and 50 for the Roosters, and he coached the Sea Eagles 305 times and the Roosters 100 times. He was born in England, actually, and raised in Wollongong. He joined Manly as an 18-year-old and he never played reserve grade. Went straight into the first grade side as an 18-year-old and never played anything other than first grade. Went on to play 35 tests and a World Cup matches for Australia as well. He won premierships with Manly in 72 and 73. When his 2 tries paved the way for victory over Cronulla, and in 76 when he captained them to victory in his final game for the club. He then accepted a rich offer to join Easts. Gee, things Things are
Yeah,
different, but
right.
things are different, but they're still the same, aren't they? They gave him brown paper bag full of cash, and off he went to the Roosters. Played 2 years there, turned to coaching, steered Manly to premiership titles, 87 and 96. He was a great coach as well and coached Australia from 1989 to 1998. Rest in peace, Bozo. He was one of the great rugby league men.
Yeah, it seemed like when I first started watching a bit of league back in the 80s, it seemed like Bob Fulton had been coaching Manly for about 160 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Graham Lowe took over from him. So,
yeah, was that when Fulton was coaching Australia?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, he moved across, and they had some great players back then. Tuvey and Spud Carroll, and Matthew Ridge, of course, went across there as well. So
Ridgey.
Yeah, Ridgely. Yeah. So there you go. He was a great rugby league man, and so many great stories told about him. Even though he was a great rugby league man, it sounded like he was a great guy before all of that, and before and after all of that. They said once he was your mate, he was your mate, you know. And if anything, there was one story I heard Peter Peters say about one guy who was doing it pretty tough as far as money went, and one of his businesses was failing. And Bozo called all the guys from the old Manly side and said, put in $1,000 each. Give me $1,000. And he collected $1,000 from about 15 guys, took it in a paper bag and gave it to the guy and said, there you go, but don't tell anyone. And Peter Peters only told this story once he died. Didn't want anyone else to know. But that was just the sort of guy he was. He never wanted the limelight, but just a top bloke, mate. So very sad that the man's left us.
Yes. Anything else happening in the rugby league world, mate?
Not really, mate. Not really. Other than I can't wait to see Reece Walsh play again. That man is he's just phenomenal. Unfortunately, he's suspended against the Storm next week. Yeah. Oh, mate, the guy is just wow. I just love him.
Oh, good on you, mate. Good on you.
It's great having a crush, eh? It's great having one of those players one of those players just comes out of the thing and you just go, wow. And they're the reason you turn the TV on a Friday night, you know? It's great. Will Jordan's a bit like that in rugby. I mean, just one of those guys. Yeah.
Yes,
baseball.
I was keeping that one quiet.
You're very comfortable with your sexuality, though, mate.
Quite right.
Love it.
Now, yesterday in the United States, it was the, of course, it's the, what date are we today? We're the 4th of June here.
Yes.
So they're, of course, a day behind. So yesterday in the States, it was the 2nd of June, and US Baseball celebrated the first ever Lou Gehrig Day.
Yeah.
Lou Gehrig, for those that don't know, it was one of the greatest men to ever pull on a Yankees jersey. Played from 1925 right through till the late 1930s. And he died of ALS. Now, don't ask me to pronounce that specific disease, but in the United States, it's called Lou Gehrig disease. And the 2nd of June is poignant for two reasons. It marked the anniversary of him becoming the everyday first baseman for the Yankees in 1925. And it's also the date of his death in 1941 at just 37 years old. And he's very famous in the States for making a speech on Yankee Stadium infield on the 4th of July in 1938, I think it was, where he claimed to just be, he said, I'm the luckiest man
in the world.
Yeah. Luckiest man in the world speech. And just a great player. And just, as I say, died at just 37 years old. So 2nd of June every year now will be the Lou Gehrig Day, as the 15th of April is Jackie Robinson Day.
And of course, he was known as the Iron Horse. Was he the Iron Horse?
Yep.
The reason he got given that name, of course, is because he played the most consecutive games. So he wasn't just a player. He was just, he never got injured, did he, Macca? That was the thing. That was the shocking thing about this revelation, was the guy seemed just like a Mack truck, like no one could take the guy down. He never got injured, played how many games did he play in a row? It was something ridiculous.
2,631.
2,631. Stupid number. And when you think about baseball, they're playing every second day, if not every first day. Yeah. And to play that many games in a row, I mean, just absolutely phenomenal stamina. The man must have had. And then for him to get laid low by this disease and then die from it so early, it was just such a tragic story, even for people that don't like the Yankees. We all sort of, anyone with a heart, really, just sort of goes, wow, that's just such a tragic story. So It's great that they've actually got a day for him now. This is what baseball does so well, don't they? Like you said, they've got a Jackie Robinson Day. They've got him. And there's another guy that died in a plane crash, Jose
Clemente.
Clemente.
I can't remember the exact date for that. Sometime in July.
Everyone wears his number too, don't they?
Yep.
On that day as well. They do it perfectly.
In Major League action, everybody wore a badge on their shirt, and it was 4 ALS, 4 being Lou Gehrig's playing number, which has obviously been retired, one of the many retired Yankees numbers. So very poignant day in US baseball yesterday. Minor league action, Kyle Glogowski he's back with the Reading Fighting Phils. He hasn't pitched this week, so I'm hoping he's not injured. I must look a bit further into that. But Ben Thompson's still getting plenty of work at the Augusta Green Jackets. He picked up his second win the other day, is now only given up 8 hits, 2 earned runs and 5 walks. He struck out 19 hitters, and his ERA, earned run average, which is average over 9 innings played, he's only giving away 1.29 runs for every 9 innings pitched. So
wow,
pretty good performance.
Very good.
Him. Spoke about Jason Matthews last week. Unfortunately, their playoff run ended early. So Jason Matthews' college career has come to its conclusion, and we now wait to see what happens at the next stage of his career. But I can honestly say I wish Jason all the very best in whatever he does going forward. Having a look at the standings, Tampa Bay leads the way in the American League East with Boston 2 games back and the Yankees 4.5 games behind. In the Central, Chicago White Sox lead the way ahead of Cleveland, 2.5 game gap between those two. And Oakland lead Houston Astros from in the West by just 1 game. So it's a pretty tight league in the West. In the National League, the New York Mets still hold the lead in the East, 4 games ahead of the Atlanta Braves. Chicago Cubs are building a nice season in Chicago. They're 1.5 games ahead of St. Louis Cardinals in the National League Central. And in the West, probably the tightest of all divisions at the moment, you've got San Francisco have climbed back to the top. They had dropped as far low as 3rd last week. But there's 1.5 games spreading the top 3 in that division, with San Francisco followed by San Diego and the Los Angeles Dodgers. So still plenty to play for. We're only 2 months into the 6-month regular season. They're just starting to talk about rosters for the All-Star game, which will happen sometime in July, the midway point of the season. So, yeah, always interesting to see who the fans pick for those All-Star games.
Beautiful. Thousands of games to go. Go in the MLB, but Macca will keep us posted with all the comings and goings and everything that's going on in the MLB. What else is happening in the world of sports, mate? Other stuff. Oh, this is a big story this week. Naomi Osaka, the number 1 tennis player in the world. Well, she was for a little while there. She withdrew from the French Open, citing mental health issues. This is just a day after she was fined by the WTA for avoiding her media responsibility. She didn't want to do interviews beforehand, and they do seem to do a hell of a lot of interviews, don't they? But then actually pulling out of the tournament, a massive thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, talk going around is that she has been having a rough time of it lately, and those players, men and women, they just have such high expectations of themselves, and when things don't quite go to plan, the whole world can seem to be falling apart around you. And I've always felt sorry for sports people in general that have to pick themselves up especially after a loss, to have a microphone shoved in their face straight after. In many cases, it's before you've even left the field of play or called or whatever.
Even half time nowadays.
Yeah, exactly. and being an ex-journalist myself, it was something that I didn't enjoy, was interrupting, players' flow when, doing a halftime interview or, even at full time, you sort of want to give them a chance to just sort of cool down and have a drink and get themselves sorted. I mean, we've seen so many occasions before, haven't we, where coaches or players have just said something that they've regretted later because it was in the heat of the moment and ended up being fined for it. So, yeah, it's sort of a double-edged sword, I guess.
It is. It is. I mean, people want to hear from them, but do they need to be interviewed that many times? I don't know. I mean, first of all, I think your obligation needs to be to the sport. I mean, surely, I mean, I know once you get to a certain level, yes, you owe things to the media as well, but surely your main priority should be being a good tennis player. And really, these days, if you want to be a professional athlete, it's just part of it to be a good tennis player. And the other part of it is this, you have to do it. And it is just such a tough thing. I just think that they could have been a little bit more sensitive to the whole situation. I thought it was very quite ironic that Serena Williams came out and said, she was feeling sorry for her. I was thinking, well, half of this mental health problem probably started when you ranted and raved when she won her first Grand Slam and you made her feel like a complete tit. It was supposed to be her time in the spotlight, and you basically made it all about you. So, yeah, I don't know. I just think good on her. Good on her for having the guts to pull out and saying, well, no, this isn't for me. I'm pulling out. And then she's actually created the issue. She's actually said, well, this issue is too big for me and I'm just done with it. And I think that's the best thing she could have done. If she had carried on and said, look, I'm just not doing interviews, it would have created more backlash towards her. I think she's done the right thing. So good on her. I just hope she gets some help and sorts herself out.
Yes, disappointing finishes for the two Scots. At the end, it was 500. Dixon had started on pole. He ran out of gas after having to drive an extra lap than scheduled due to a crash that was ahead of him before.
How does that happen? How do you run out of gas?
Yeah, I guess they fill those cars to the absolute. You've got 25 laps worth of fuel.
Yeah.
But don't come in on the 23rd lap because
yeah, absolutely.
On the 24th, so
it is fine margins, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, how many times have we seen Bathurst drivers run out of gas, on that last lap?
Absolutely.
And McLaughlin made a mistake when his brakes locked up coming into the pits, resulting in a speeding pit lane penalty, which he admitted at the end that it was his fault. But, again, he had to drive an extra lap before he was supposed to go in for one reason or another. But yeah, that's just goes to show, that thing's 500 miles long and how many laps of that oval course, yet it comes down to tiny little mistakes.
Yep, it does. And
we see it in Bathurst as well.
And Helio Castro-Neves was the winner.
Yes.
Fourth time, and he seems like a really nice guy too. So I didn't mind him having the milk, so long as it's not willpower. That guy's a dick.
And Helio's well known for his climbing up the wall,
the fence. Yeah. To
say good day to the fans.
He's a rather emotional man.
Yes, Dixon finished 17th, and McLaughlin way back in 20th, but he was the top rookie. So one thing for Scotty McLaughlin to hang on to.
Absolutely. All right. We're a good week, bad week, aren't we?
We are.
Okay, so good week. For me, it has to be one person.
Yeah.
Slice of Devon. Oh, definitely, man. Devon Conway, 200 in your first test at Lords. It doesn't get any better than that. So Devon Conway, definitely my good week. Bad week, same game. He had quite a good start. A guy called Ollie Robinson. I don't know whether you...
Yeah.
Ollie Robinson. He posted a series of tweets at the age of 18, which resurfaced on his first day as an England player. He used the N-word. He said, my new Muslim friend is the bomb.
Yeah.
It's very clever. And a number of other things about females who play video games actually tend to have more sex, he said. Yeah. I don't know what's so wrong with that one. I don't know. And there were some other terrible ones as well.
Yeah,
The
we
worst
won't
thing
go into
about
those.
The worst thing about it, he actually had quite a good day on the field. He looked quite a handy bowler. He looked a little bit like, to me, he reminded me a little bit of Glenn McGrath. He was up and down, beautiful action, very cerny. Got 3 wickets by the end of the first day, a couple of wickets by the end of the first day, and ended up with 4 for. But at the end of the day, then had to apologise in a chair in front of everyone, reading a prepared statement saying, "I'm really sorry. I'm not racist or sexist. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry." So Ollie Robinson looked like it was going to be your best week. Ended up being your bad week. Just be careful what you tweet, man. What are you doing?
Well, he also didn't he come out a couple of days before the test and told the whole world how he was going to get Kane Williamson out?
Apparently, the interviewer said, "How are you going to get Kane Williamson out?" I said, "No, I don't want to talk about that." They said, "Oh, come on, what I'm going to do." So to me, he's obviously not the sharpest knife in the drawer from the start. But if you knew you did those sorts of things and you've been called up for anything, why wouldn't you just go back and delete those anyway? And what sort of people actually go, "Oh, this guy's just been called up. Let's check him out on Twitter. Let's go back 8 years." Who actually does that too?
They're called Fleet Street writers, Aaron.
True.
They probably work for the Sun.
Oh God. Don't buy the Sun. Hashtag don't buy the Sun.
Yeah.
There you go. We're not fans of the Sun on this podcast. So there you go. Good week, Devon Conway. Bad week, Ollie Robinson.
Oh, I'm sure Ollie Robinson will come right. He looks, as you say, quite a tidy bowler. And yes, Devon Conway, just an absolute superstar in the making. Well, that's it. It's been a great podcast, and it was great to have Guy Heveldt from TVNZ on earlier in the show. And yes, we definitely look forward to catching up and hearing all the stories of the COVID Olympics.
Absolutely. It's going to be, there's going to be some stories to tell for sure. And can't wait to hear from Guy about the sort of things that he's going to have to go through over there just to get an interview and get something to eat and all that stuff. It's going to be, better him than us, I guess. But I mean, he has been vaccinated, so go well, Guy. Go well, Guy.
Oh, on that note, it's good night from me.
And it's good morning from him.